My name is Dr. Al-Humaidhi. I'm a board-certified family physician, and after my post yesterday of the neuroscientist that presented her data on menopause in the brain, I had a lot of questions about what that means. There was difficulty understanding. So I want to break down some basic science here about our brain and what happens in terms of glucose metabolism in our brain. So the first thing you need to know is that our brain makes up only about 1 to 2% of our mass. So our whole mass, only 1 to 2% of that is our brain. However, a disproportionate amount of our energy is used in the brain. So even though it's 1 to 2%, 25% of our glucose-derived energy is used in the brain. And the reason for that is because our brain is always active. Additionally, lots of our other tissues, like our liver and our muscles, have the ability to store glucose as glycogen, so store it for a rainy day to use it later on. Our brain does not have any ability to store glucose, so it needs to be getting glucose from our bloodstream at all times to remain active. And that's why when people have hypoglycemic attacks, they present with neurological symptoms, so confusion and memory loss and even loss of consciousness. So in order for our brain to work that well, to be able to maintain its energy levels, it needs to be getting glucose all the time. And in order to do that, we need to have mechanisms to transport that glucose from the bloodstream into the brain tissue where it can be used. Now, what happens when we lose estrogen is that function is disrupted. So we are not efficiently moving glucose from the bloodstream into the cells of the brain to make energy. So we have an energy crisis in our brain. We're not getting enough glucose in our brain to do all the things that we used to do. And this is why we have memory lapses and brain fog associated with hormonal decline. What our brain does as a result of that is it's trying to pivot, and it's trying to look for other sources of energy. So it pivots to our white matter. White matter is the part of our brain where all our connectors are, our axons. If you think of a nerve cell, it has a cell structure at the start, but then it has a long axon. And that's how one cell communicates with the next cell and then with the next cell. Now that axon down which we send an electrical impulse, which is a nerve stimulus, right? Down that axon, which kind of is like a wire. Now that wire needs to be surrounded by a layer to protect it, to make sure that that nerve impulse goes the way that it needs to, the same as a wire. And that layer in our brain is made up of myelin, or the myelin sheath. And myelin is made up of lipids, which are fats. And our brain turns to that as a source of energy in the absence of glucose. So we start to break down these myelin sheaths in our brain because our brain needs them for energy.